This is episode 69 with Rebecca Wheeling.
Welcome to Spot On Insurance. Join us each week as we speak to insurance professionals, attorneys, regulators, and compliance specialists on topics ranging from improving your agency to staying on the right side of the law. Subscribe and stay informed on the effects of new trends and disruptive emerging technologies on your businesses and your industry.
Rebecca Wheeling is the co-founder and CEO of Schedule It. She co-founded Schedule It with her husband Bob Purcell in 2013. It was while working as insurance adjusters that they both saw the need for a solution to help adjusters handle claims more efficiently. A solution that it turns out would also help insurance carriers to increase customer satisfaction and policyholders to recover quicker after disasters. Rebecca is a nationally recognized speaker providing actionable insights for claims adjusters to eliminate distracting tasks, work more efficiently, enhance customer satisfaction, and improve their bottom line. She was recently recognized as an emerging entrepreneur by the Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Fame. Rebecca, welcome to Spot On Insurance.
Thank you.
Rebecca, we're really anxious to get on to this. Right before we started recording, I was telling you how Ted and I are normally just talking with insurance producers that are in the property and casualty sector. And when we do get involved with adjusters, it's just on the licensing side. And I've done a little bit of research on you, just been amazed at the platform Schedule It. And as I did the research, I was just drawn to the whole life of an adjuster. And we just entered hurricane season, and we had a very active 2017. We had tremendous amount of claims, and we had the wildfires, the back-to-back hurricanes, and it's just a great time to kind of spotlight adjusters and the life of adjusters. And I first of all wanted to find out, how did you get into this field?
Well, I started at Paul Davis Restoration back in 2007 because I left the hospital industry. I was just tired of, the challenges and not being able to get anywhere that you needed to in the corporate world. And starting at Paul Davis, I was able to learn the skill of estimating using estimating software programs. Back then we used MSB and Xactimate. And then to be able to work with the different insurance companies that were assigning claims to our Paul Davis branch. And I was very lucky to work with a group of people that taught me the proper way to be able to write an estimate so that it was based on putting a homeowner back to pre-loss condition and not exaggerating what pre-loss condition was. And I earned a reputation quickly with the insurance carriers for being fair and accurate and ethical. And so that's how I was able to then move into the field of independent adjusting back in 2010, 2011. And I had already been networking with that group of people. And so it was a very easy transition for me.
And what prompted you to go from being an independent adjuster to starting Schedule It?
Oh, well, that's very simple and hard at the same time. So we were in the middle of working Sandy. My husband and Bob and I, we had left our home in Kentucky and we had gone to Long Island. And a few weeks into it, we had a scheduler, and Debbie, and she was scheduling a lot of claims for both of us, but she kept having other adjusters call her because they were getting assigned duplicate claims that were already scheduled with us, and they were trying to hire her. So my husband had said, why don't we start a scheduling company? And I said, absolutely not. I don't want to own a business. But then in January, I felt the Lord calling me to be able to start this company. So I have to be honest, we started it in January 2013, and I was semi on board. Semi.
That sounds like our story.
Yeah.
Ted always wanted to have our own business, and I loved being in the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed, probably for about 3 years starting the business. And at first I was like, oh, okay, maybe just one employee. And now we have like 60 something. But he was definitely the one that was like, oh, we have to have our own business. But I have no regrets whatsoever.
Yeah, and as independent adjusters, you really do have your own business. We had an S corp, and we were filing our taxes as a business owners. So we had our own business, and I was perfectly happy with just the two of us. But after we started the business in January of 2013, and we come up with a name, and we created a website, and we were still working claims on Long Island during this time. But in February, I went to a lady's house, and I pulled up to her house, and it was on Staten Island. And her little 3-year-old boy, he's out in the front yard, and he's doing the little airplane with his hands, and he's running. Young boys like that, they have a lot of energy, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I get up to the porch, and Mom is sitting there on the porch rocking the baby in the little car seat, and she's crying. Tears are running down her face. And I said, "Oh, what's wrong?" And she's like, "I'm just glad you're here."
Oh, gosh.
And it still affects me today, that this whole company really was catapulted off of, this lady that is on Staten Island 4 months into the storm, living in a hotel with this very energized young boy and a baby and her 3 dogs. No money yet from the carrier. And I'm the 4th adjuster at her house. And
Oh, wow.
I said, "Okay, I get what you're trying to show me here, Father." And I said, "This is what we're supposed to do, then, and you'll make it happen." And every door has been open at the right time for us along this journey.
Just with Sandy, I know so many people in Staten Island just kept feeling like they were the forgotten ones. And the thing is, when these disasters happen, just like, we experienced here in Puerto Rico with Maria,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just can't get enough people out in the field. And then just logistically, it's like here in this case, an island, it's like getting the people here was difficult, right? Because you
Right.
have planes and all of that. So that's what you guys do, is just get in there and start organizing that, right? Like the logistics of it. Talk to us about that.
Sure. So currently, what happens is that whenever the claims are assigned to the adjusters, you've got to remember that they're trying to pack, they're trying to say goodbye to their family, they're trying to get their vehicles ready or get their plane tickets or all the things that they have to be doing. And, the carriers need those claims assigned as soon as possible. And so the carrier or the firm are assigning them to the adjusters, and the adjuster's just trying to get to where they need to go. So the adjuster, utilizing Schedule It, the claims come directly into our system through a sync capability. And then our software will automatically make those contacts, sending text messages, which was immensely helpful for Puerto Rico. We scheduled thousands of claims in your area. And when the text messages go to Puerto Rico, they go out in Spanish as the first language. So we were able to make contact with homeowners in seconds. Back even today, when adjusters aren't utilizing us, the average receive time that they get a claim and they're able to make contact, we all want it to be within 24 hours, but according to Exactware's reports, it's 54 hours on average. And so, that's why the adjusters utilize our software and love it, is because those contacts are able to happen within 3 minutes of the claim being assigned.
Wow. Having the tools that you're providing, I know that definitely would be such a positive and such a help for these adjusters. Tell me a little bit about, like, from the adjuster's perspective, they're going into ravaged areas. They know that what they're going to be jumping into is obviously not anything pleasant. What is that like, just psychologically dealing with all of that?
Well, let me think. Back in 2014, when we went to the Moore, Oklahoma tornadoes. So we had driven like 12, 14 hours from Kentucky. Both my husband and I are doing our own claims. So we had 2 vehicles and an RV. And we get there and just everything's gone. And so you can't find a lot of places to be able for lodging. So you're staying away from the area. So you have the driving distance as well. And then people are just really in shock when you start doing those inspections, and they repeat themselves a lot. And so as an adjuster, not only is your goal to be able to identify the damages properly and to document the damages properly, but you're the lifeline to your carrier. And so our focus at Schedule It is to be able to allow the adjuster to be the lifeline for the carrier and not be focused on their phone ringing or being interrupted or getting emails of, hey, you've got to contact this person as soon as possible. All that's done. You don't have to worry about that. So when you're with that homeowner, you can tell them, you can take your time with them and you don't have to rush it. And you're able to really treat them the way that they need to be treated during that moment of need.
Well, I want to go back a little bit to what you were saying earlier about you being there, and there were, 4 adjusters that this lady has seen prior to that. How does that happen? Or if it's not happening anymore, why was it happening?
During even Harvey and Maria and Irma, even last year, August, September, and October, according to Exactware, 24% of all claims were reassigned at least one time. So that's sad in our industry. But the reasoning on the lady on Staten Island, the reason I was her 4th adjuster, because I wanted to figure it out too. The first adjuster that had gotten assigned to the claim, he never showed up for his deployment. He or she, I don't remember if it was a male or a woman, but they didn't recognize that because there's so much chaos going on for like 2 or 3 weeks into the storm. So then the second adjuster that went out, they did go out. They spent 3 or 4 hours, according to the homeowner, wrote all their paperwork up and got all the measurements and everything, and then didn't submit an accurate report. Okay. It was not complete enough. And that's really because it was a newer adjuster. This was a severely damaged home. And the adjuster that got assigned to the file didn't have enough experience. So then the third adjuster that went out said, hey, this needs an engineer. It's 8 inches off of the foundation. We need an engineer out here, and didn't do anything but request the engineer. And so there weren't enough engineers at that time. There still aren't today, as resources are scarce, when these events happen. And so the homeowner had been calling the carrier and complaining. So my boss asked me to go out and just try to be able to see what's going on. And I said, look, it's 8 inches off its foundation. We got windows cracked. You're going to have to tear down this house. And so we got approval, and the estimate was written in about 15 minutes. And she had her check from the carrier within like 10 days.
Wow. And the other thing that comes to mind is when these disasters happen, oftentimes local adjusters are impacted. So they're not out there working the field. And that's why you have to have adjusters come in from all over the place and, from different states, a lot of times different countries, to help out during these situations, because the local adjusters are impacted by the hurricane, by the wildfires, by whatever the disaster is. Right.
Yeah, and a really good example of that was last year during Harvey. A lot of the Florida adjusters were over in Texas. And then when Irma was getting ready to come, they had to turn back in their claims to be able to get home, to be able to take care of their own families and their own homes and their own properties, and to get everything buckled down before Irma hit. So we were scheduling for adjusters that had to turn back in those claims. The great thing about, when they use us, the carriers, is that we can tell them, okay, here's the adjuster that you should assign it to, because they have calendar availability already open and they're already near that area, because we know what all the schedules are, right? Mm-hmm. It's different if a carrier's not working with us, then they just have to assign it to some other adjuster, and then it has to go back through the cycle again of trying to be able to get rescheduled. So a lot of the adjusters that left Harvey for Florida to take care of their properties, those homeowners didn't even really get impacted because of that problem, because we were just able to automatically assign them to adjusters that were already in that area, working claims in that area that had calendar availability. Now, when they got there, they obviously knew that their adjuster originally assigned was Bob and the new one is Jane. And they're like, hey, but they're happy somebody's there.
And so what do you do with the issue of licensing? Are a lot of them getting like the temporary license, which I know it's like issued like within 24 hours for the CAT licenses? How do you guys do that? Like your assignments?
Currently, whenever we get the claim, it's already assigned to the adjuster. So we don't worry about the licensing issue. They're not, the carriers and the firms aren't assigning them to adjusters that aren't licensed in that area. But I will tell you that was one of the major problems in New York, is that New York has such a hard licensing process, and they aren't reciprocal with any other state. So that's why a lot of those homeowners weren't able to get help 3 and 4 months after the storm, is because those emergency licenses, I think that they were 90 days or 120 days. So a lot of the adjusters had to go home.
Right.
Yeah. So they weren't able to work with the cleanup.
And that's where you have to see how it impacts your people. Like if you can't get that license, like that emergency license within 24 hours, you're impacting your people, your community.
And those agents and brokers all across the United States, they have personal relationships with their customers. Here in Kentucky, I'm going to call my agent and he's probably going to come to my house. He's going to know my name. And so it's hard from an agent's perspective, I would believe, that you don't know what's happening in the claims journey, and you get a complaint and it's a hard time to be able to help your customer, but also to be able to figure out what's happening in the claims departments.
So what's one of the more tedious parts of the job that you have to deal with that perhaps new technology might be able to help resolve it? Maybe you're already doing some of that with Schedule It, but are there other areas that are a hardship?
I would say that there's two tedious parts to the scheduling aspect of the claims inspections. The first is just mapping and routing the claims. We've created an algorithm based on how adjusters want their scheduling done. Different adjusters want it done different ways. I personally like to start with my farthest claim each day, and then 4 to 5 a day. I want to start them at 9 o'clock in the morning. I want an average inspection time of an hour. These different types of pieces we've put into our software. And if you're not utilizing or decreasing the windshield time of your adjusters, you're not going to be able to see more claims per day. And most adjusters, adjusting companies and most carriers, they want the adjusters to increase the claims per day that they're seeing in closing. But they can't, because they're not utilizing a software that schedules or routes the claims like they do. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Is the adjusting time frame for any given day limited to daylight? Do they do night work, or you need that daylight in order to get the work done?
Yeah, you really do need that daylight to be able to take a picture of the front of the wrist, to be able to take pictures of the elevations. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's gotten dark, and I've been out on the road before and put the lights up from the vehicle onto the front of the property when I'm doing like a foreclosed on property that nobody's there. But, 99.9% of the time you need daylight to be able to do that. But the second challenging part is just keeping up with all the claim file notes. Manually typing a note in every time you contact somebody takes time. And so that's why one of the key pieces of the software is like I type 75, 80 words a minute, but it just takes time. And so making sure that our software automatically put in the notes the way that the carrier wanted them done, because they all want them done differently. Yeah. And keeping track of how they all want them done. So our software keeps track of how each one of the carriers want their contact notes put in, and then it automatically puts that in for the adjusters, which saves tremendous amounts of time and has a much better file product.
Spot On is sponsored by Insurance Licensing Services of America. Need help with corporate name changes, annual returns, or surplus lines tax filings? Feeling overwhelmed? If you're looking for experts in regulatory compliance, you've come to the right place. ILSA provides the industry with over 50 services. To learn more about the company and how they can help, visit ilsainc.com.
So since you've been in the industry, during your journey in your career, have you seen great developments with technology, a lot of tools that you've been able to implement? And, I know that some sectors, they're just not utilizing technology enough. How do you see that in your industry?
So I'm on the board for the National Association of Catastrophe Adjusters, okay? Love this organization. We get together once a year and all the adjusters from multiple different varieties come. And last year it was great because we were able to have one continuous classroom with 4 different technology solutions that were changing in the industry for all 3 days of the conference so that adjusters could get this training. And so that's aerial sketching. Are you familiar
I'm
with
not.
aerial sketching? Okay, so you would Eagle View, Ridgetop Sketch, Advanced Claims Technologies. These companies take a long time to be able to get up on a roof that has 16 different facets, to measure each one, to take your pitch gauge and photograph it all, right? So what these companies do is that they save us that time as adjusters in the field. And by being able to utilize one of those companies, and there's many more, that will automatically measure the roof and the pitches and send it to you in a file. So you don't have to duplicate that work.
Are they doing this satellite or they're not using drones, right? They're using satellite imagery? They
are using satellite imagery. But, now one of the new things that we were being trained on at the Catastrophe Adjusters Conference was drone inspecting, and utilizing that in areas that sometimes it's really hard to be able to get up on some of these roofs with the pitch and the height, and especially in areas like Staten Island or like downtown Cleveland that have a lot of row houses. You just can't get up there without paying for assistance and delaying the claim. I love being able to see the new technology that is making a difference in the industry.
And do you find that a lot of, you're going to these conferences, so the adjusters that you're dealing with there are definitely learning and getting educated on what's new. But do you find that to be common practice with adjusters?
I think that there's a lot of silos in the adjusting industry. Back when I started my career, it was told to us that you shouldn't work for more than one company at the same time, or you shouldn't work for more than one independent adjusting firm at the same time because you'll get fired. So people weren't learning how other people were doing things. They just kept with their own little group. And now with Facebook adjuster groups, with LinkedIn adjuster groups, people are learning from each other more and learning different ways to be able to improve their skills. I would say probably 20% are doing that, but I don't think that the majority of adjusters in the industry are seeking ways to be able to improve their skills because they're just, in their silo and doing the same thing they've done always.
I want to get your take on self-driving cars and how that's going to affect policyholders and just claims there.
I cannot wait for all the self-driving cars. Can't wait for something to drive me around. And, adjusters think like that because they spend a lot of time behind windshields and it's wasted time for them. If their vehicle could drive them everywhere that they needed to go, they could be writing their reports while they were getting driven to their next inspection.
I kind of do that already, but we have a Tesla, but she cringes.
It freaks me out.
We're on the highway and it's a long trip. We are able to complete a lot of work on the road as long as we're on the highway.
I have one as well. He has an S and I have an X, and I never use any of the features of self-driving. I don't even, I never even use cruise control on my
She won't use it properly until they take out the steering wheel and it's just really, really self-driving. That's when she's going to be comfortable.
I can't imagine.
He is definitely the early adopter.
But I want you to go in depth and tell us about Schedule It. I mean, you built this thing because you saw a need. Tell me how it has, just step by step, how it has improved the lives of adjusters and just the carriers, how it has transformed how they're handling claims.
Let's see. What's the best way to be able to say that? Because, our adjusters say it the best. I think that one of the main things about Schedule It is that most people in the insurtech industry, they always start at either the agent's office or the carrier's office. Would you agree? And so we didn't do that. We started with the people that actually needed the tool. And we worked with them, and being us too, said, what do you want? What is going to make your job easier? And first of all, the main thing is everybody says, I route my claims or schedule my claims the way I do. Well, after scheduling over 50,000 claims last year, I can tell you that there's 4 different varieties of the way people would schedule their claims. And so identifying the commonalities and then creating that in a software that works for all of them, right? And so then how do we build the bridge for the adjusters to be able to get their data into a secure environment? Because adjusters wanted to make sure that the data that they were acquiring was not going to get stolen. Their security, conscientious, and confidentiality is important to them. And so we went through what's called a SOC 2 audit. And so it's a securities and compliance, and it ensures that when the data goes into our system, that it's properly handled and taken care of so that we've met all the guidelines to be able to get the certification. Is that simple enough? And so, adjusters were very concerned about that. The third thing that they were concerned about is ensuring that whatever the items that they had to manually do, how could we automate them? And I say that based on, whenever they get a first notice of loss, the homeowner typically will tell the agent or the carrier everything that's been damaged, right? But unfortunately, sometimes what happens, probably about 50% of the time, when it comes through 10 different APIs, the only thing it says when it gets to the adjuster is that it's wind damage. So we had to be able to build questions to ask the homeowner based on the claim type and based on the carrier and based on the firm, what's this adjuster going to walk into? They needed to know that they knew what they were going to walk into and that they were going to have enough time to spend with that homeowner. And then the last thing that they really wanted was they needed to be able to track their income and their per diem. So we built a way for them to automatically have their per diem calculated based on where they're away from home, and then a way for them to put in what they're paid on each claim. Because you can imagine if you're out on the road, you don't have the energy to do it all, right? You're trying to take care of your homeowner. And so really when ask about Schedule It and how did all this come to be, I can't take credit for that because thousands of adjusters have given their suggestions and we've listened and we've asked again and again and again. And I just love all of our users because they're honest with this. And now the firms and the carriers are starting to realize that this is a problem in the industry for the adjusters and that it takes a lot of time for them to schedule everybody. So now the firms and the carriers are starting to pay for Schedule It because the adjusters, the ones on boots on the ground, they've always paid for Schedule It before last year. They paid for the tool themselves because they enjoyed it and it helped them that much.
But from the side of the carrier, it just makes the whole process smoother and allows them to just handle things more efficiently. So it behooves them to have it. Mm-hmm. I want to take a moment to talk about your team, and I want to share a quote from one of your employees. It says, she wrote, "It's been a real joy to work with Reba since 2007. This is the most exciting time yet. I have had the fortunate experience of making a difference, calming an insured when their home has been taken away by a fire or tornado, and reassuring the adjuster who just had 70 claims or more assigned to him that Schedule It would route all the claims, contact would be made to each insured, and appointments would be scheduled by the time he reached his or her destination. I love seeing Schedule It evolve and grow." I mean, it puts everything into perspective. Like, that's what you guys have created. And I'm just excited to have gotten this opportunity to talk to you and learn more about the perspective from the adjuster side and how you guys have created this wonderful tool to make their lives easier and to help homeowners. Want to get from you, what do you see in the pipeline?
In the industry or
in both, for the adjuster industry and then for yourself, for your firm?
So in the adjusting industry, really adjusters are going to have to start being more diversified. They're going to need to learn how to do drone inspections. They're going to need to learn auto. They're going to need to really diversify and not be so focused on just one piece of it. because there's opportunities in all those different fields. And if they stay in their silos and just do property, or I'm only going to do flood, I'm only going to do auto, you have an opportunity to be able to help more people if you will take the time to learn how to do the other pieces in the industry. What's in the pipeline at Schedule It? Well, so on our mobile app, we're creating it to where the adjusters can use the app themselves. And we have a release coming out in just a few more weeks. And so it might be out by the time this podcast is done, where the adjusters can do their own scheduling from their mobile app instead of having to log into the web or instead of needing the personal scheduling assistant. And then also one of the things coming in the pipeline is for them to be able to scope and keep all their scope notes in their Schedule It app. My husband has paperwork everywhere. I'm trying to help streamline him and many other of my female friend adjusters and their husbands. So let's stop using the paper and let's make it to where it really is something that's a tool that's going to save them time. And so that's what we're constantly focused on at Schedule It.
As someone in our circle of insurance professionals, what advice can you share with someone that's just entering the industry, a newbie?
As an adjuster?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. I mean, the first thing you should do is that you should build your network of adjusting mentors. Anybody that's been adjusting in the industry, there's Facebook groups, like I said, and LinkedIn groups, and the National Association of Catastrophe Adjusters, which doesn't just do catastrophe claims. They do daily claims, obviously, but you really do need to network. I would definitely suggest if you're looking at doing flood, you need to go to adjustertrainer.com. Dee Dee has a great program to be able to teach new flood adjusters. If you're looking to get into property, there's Jeremy Reddig has Adjusting to Six Figures. That's a great website that has a group or a core team of people that are always available to ask new people or answer new people's questions so that they don't have to be embarrassed by calling their manager or something like that when they're out on the road by themselves handling claims. And then, at NACA, for the National Association of Catastrophe Adjusters, they have a great mentoring program where you can go ride with seasoned adjusters and they'll show you the ropes.
Yeah, but you know what? I think you got all the newbies with adjusting to six figures. I think if anybody was not listening after that point. Well, you've given us some wonderful information, but if someone needs to connect with you, how do they reach you? They have more questions and would like to take part and Schedule It.
Our website is www.schedueit.io. So that means you're a data company and you bring data in and you push data out.
Cool. Okay. Very, very good.
Yeah.
And you're also on LinkedIn.
Yes, I am. And then on Facebook or LinkedIn, and feel free to call our office and any of the team will be able to take care of you.
Awesome. Thank you. But before I forget, let me remind our circle of professionals to please join us next week for episode 70, when we interview Todd Martin, a partner in the law firm of Stinson Leonard Street. Todd has more than 20 years experience in insurance regulations, administrative law, and employee benefits. He advises insurers, third-party administrators, brokers, and employers on health plan regulatory issues. On episode 70, we discuss the latest legislative updates to association health plans and what it may mean for you.
Rebecca, thank you so much for taking part in our little insurance podcast. It's been a pleasure having you.
Oh, thanks. I've had a great time.
It's been wonderful getting to chat with you. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
You're welcome. You guys be safe out there.
Thank you.
Visit spotoninsurance.com, where you'll discover an ever-growing library of podcasts, videos, articles, and online tools by professionals for professionals to enhance your insurance education. By the way, that's where you'll also find our podcast notes and bonus resources. Please don't forget to click the iTunes link to rate and review, and let others know what you think of Spot On Insurance. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next week.